So.
Okay, are we ready?
Yes.
Is everybody here? Is everybody in the room?
We're still waiting for somebody, Lee.
But we have to start this 7:30.
Okay,
All right.
so we had tonight, there were a couple of things that I wanted to talk to you about that seemed important. Some of them I had mentioned last week, some of them a week before. There were three, what I call vignettes. Sometimes the vignettes are very interesting and they're worth giving out. Baker, when he was writing the original, what he called the original manuscript, or the Om, was 40,000 essays and vignettes on quantum physics. And vignettes are just small little things, little stories or events or things that are important because it ties everything together. You'll see what I mean. From several weeks ago, I said that I believe that the autopsy on Gabby Petito and the cause of death would be strangulation. And I based that on some intuitive feeling I had about the grotesque size of her boyfriend's hands. I have large hands, but his hands, his fingers look like they're about an inch longer than mine, which is completely out of proportion with the rest of the size of his body. And they're larger in diameter, about 1.5 times. And it struck me that he had this strange anatomical peculiarity, but it wasn't just his hands, it was the shape of his cranium and what is known as the posterior foramen, where the skull seems a little bit elongated. I remember drawing it on one of our charts here, and I exaggerated it to make a point, but that within itself was also interesting to me because it's a medical term. It's known as acrocephalic. And what it means is in esoteric parlance, is that it is a Lemurian product of a Lemurian DNA. And the only reason that I bring that up is I'm still looking for a decent horoscope for Brian Laundrie. And I haven't found one, but I did see one that showed that he had violent karma of ancient origin, which I believe is probably Lemurian karma. It would be that because of the unusual physical oddities surrounding his body, the certain shapes of his hands and his head. But anyway, we predicted that he would strangle the girl. It would be found that he strangled her, and of course that's exactly what it was. The second vignette, I talked to a couple of people about it earlier. We're not naming names, but someone who is close to me and experienced, and I'm asking because there may be people in the group. I need to know if anybody else has experienced anything like this. Psychic attack while asleep. Experience a psychic attack, and a psychic attack of such force that it left bruises. I have the photographs of the bruises on this particular person's body. Very rare. And what it means is that I believe, this is just my interpretation, I can be wrong, is that we're forming a group. The group is beginning to form. It's not fully activated. We'll talk about that another time. But when a group is formed and the group is dealing with esoteric wisdom teachings, and many of the teachings, as we experience here, are a lot of new teachings. You'll come under attack by the dark forces. And this particular person, in my interpretation of events that took place, was under psychic attack. There hasn't been any repercussions since, and the bruising has gone away. But it was significant in that it could be seen on the physical body. It's worth noting, if anybody in this room or anybody tonight who's attending the Zoom meeting has had an experience of this type, let me know. There was a third thing. It's related to tonight's subject, the astral projection, because it involves the astral world. And it was part of a lecture I gave, I don't even remember now, it was either last week or the week before, where we talked about, we had in our PowerPoint presentation, a statement by Rudolf Steiner where we talked about viruses. I was on the lecture on the overpopulation of the planet. Steiner said that one of the great dangers is, in the first place, is to fear the virus. If you're fearing the virus, you're attracting it to you. Mm-hmm. And if you are asleep at night and you go to bed at night and you're afraid of the virus, you open yourself up astrally to attack by the virus. You enliven it and energize it. I had a friend, we buried her on Monday. Wow. Friend for many years, who I had lunch with around the end of July. And this friend had told me about her fear of the virus. She wasn't vaccinated. I don't even put any value on that. But she wasn't vaccinated, and there was an argument that ensued within her family about whether you should be vaccinated or not. And she was distraught, emotionally, astrally distraught. So about a month, wasn't even a month, maybe it was a month. August. About a month later, toward the end of August, she came down with COVID. This is a woman who I had a cat. Cat outlived her. The cat has feline leukemia. And she had asked me to try to help heal her cat through some means that we're going to talk about tonight. I was able to astrally project to the cat, and hopefully I helped heal the cat. The cat is alive, is functioning. And that was over a year ago. She was expecting the cat to die within a matter of maybe a week or two. Now the cat, ironically, has outlived her. True story. One of the things that we'll talk about tonight in techniques of astral projection is not only principles of projection, techniques of projection, but why we should do it, why we should learn to do it. Because if we want to heal, many of us are concerned with esoteric healing. We know that there are 20 maxims for esoteric healing, and the very first maxim for esoteric healing is that energy follows thought. And we need to be mindful of that in all things that we do, especially when it comes to healing. And it comes to the astral world and projecting to a sickly patient or friend and trying to heal them through the chakras that are nearest the organs that are afflicted. We're not we're not trying to heal the organ. That's the wrong approach. We're trying to heal the chakra that's feeding the energy to the organ that is in peril.
Mm.
And that's one of the deep secrets of esoteric healing. There is a fourth unwritten vignette on my notes down here, number 4, which is fate would have it. A very lovely lady in our group, Pauline. I don't know what I did with the book. Here it is.
Yeah.
It goes over here. Gave me a 40th anniversary copy of Carlos Castaneda's The Teachings of Don Juan, a Yahweh Way of Knowledge. Perfectly synchronistic for tonight's lecture. An interesting coincidence, as the old mystic told me years ago when I lived in South Africa. There is no coincidence, there are no coincidences where the divine law is concerned. But the interesting feature I had to learn early on 40 years ago when I first read this book was a large part of the teachings and the events and this may really be the only really truly valid book that was written in a series of books. I'll explain that in a minute. But it involves visitations and experiences primarily in the astral world. And then, of course, the Red American Indians were very aware of the astral world and the invisible worlds. In fact, the long headdress of the American Indians, you see some of the chiefs or the medicine men would have a full length bonnet of feathers. And it was the outward appearance or imitation of the human aura was being displayed through the feathers. And they knew about the human aura, but that's why they did it. But anyway, certainly this is, I think, the most valid of the books that were written. What was happening was, I believe, with the essence of the story in the esoteric sense, is that he was being overshadowed by a Nirmanakaya who used a subrace connected to the Americas and the powerful teachings of a very late subrace of the Atlantean root race, Indians, red American Indians, whether they were in Mexico or Central America or South America, or the ones that we know a great deal about in North America. But when you're overshadowed like that, there's a numinostic energy, we call it numinosum or numenon, which is the secret and the mystery behind phenomenon. The words are related. This energy can last for, depending upon the amount of power behind the experience, can last for years. Sometimes it may only last for a matter of a few days. I've had it last, in my experiences, for as much as 6 months, where I was energized from the numinostic energy of an overshadowing experience. The same was true for Cyril Hoskins, who wrote 20 years before this book came out, a book called The Opening of the Third Eye by T. Lobsang Rampa. And Cyril Hoskins was being overshadowed by DK, Tibetan master. And he wrote the book called The Opening of the Third Eye, which may be our lecture next week. But it was an experience in one of Dwal Kul's earlier incarnations. And Cyril Hoskins would go into a trance state, the same as Edgar Casey would, and he would give out teachings and have experiences. Casey himself was being overshadowed by the Tibetan DK. It's initiate knowledge, and it should not be taken lightly. Anyway, Pauline, thanks for the book, and I'm going to reread it again as soon as possible. So for tonight, our title is Techniques of Astral Projection. Some of these, I want to thank Vonnie Turner, who lives in Seattle. She's a Cleargate student, and she puts all my PowerPoints together. This one was actually done in 2012. This is a book. Don, can you reach there and grab that book right there by you, right there? Techniques of Astral Projection, not the picture, the book. There you go.
This
Yeah.
one?
Bring that over to you. Thanks a lot. So this is a book written by Douglas Baker. It's a lovely book on astral projection. He gives very specific and detailed and accurate explanations to the technique of astral projection. Like I say, if I can do it, you can do it. So hopefully we'll all learn something. Man is a composite being who is composed of a physical body that we are very familiar with, but is also a product of subtle bodies made of etheric substance, astral, mental, and higher forms of energies create the aura of a human being, of any human being. And he has 7 centers, which are displayed here in this particular picture. And we know about those, what we call chakras. They're chakras, not chakras, but, or chakras. They're not chakras, they're chakras. Chakra. They are chakras. And it's through these chakras, oftentimes through the solar plexus, that will have outer body experiences.
Oh, through the solar.
So there's these spiritual bodies, an astral body, which means emotional. We have a physical body, and you have this etheric body. In astral projection, we're primarily concerned with the astral body and its nomenclature. And this shows us again, is we're trying to explain the structure of the human aura. It has both a vortex at the top and a torrent here. And again, we have the physical, the etheric, the astral, the mental, and what we're calling here a cosmic body, meaning that it's made up of energies like Atma, Buddhi, and higher manas, higher mental plane. And so we are this composite being, and our globe, the earth, in the Yaqui teachings of Carlos Castaneda and of the Hopi Indians and other very esoteric American Indian tribes, they describe the 7 globes variously, usually through the colors of clay, that they say that the first globe was made of a certain color of clay. I think it might have been yellow clay or white clay, meaning that it was symbolically, it was the mental globe. And then the astral globe was created, and then the etheric globe, and finally the physical globe, which is where we are now. This globe, according to Blavatsky, is beginning to dematerialize and become etheric. It will take millions of years for this to happen. Some esotericists believe that there are already indications of dematerialization taking place. I think I've talked about them in previous lectures of Olympic records that are constantly being broken. And many people who are of an exoteric vein, not esoteric, but exoteric, grounded in the physical world, believe that it's because of things like uh, diet, food, the equipment has changed and evolved over the years, and certainly that has helped. But that is not true in dog racing, and horse racing, where also records are being broken, which proves my point of a subtle, minuscule dematerialization of the physical world. And that's one of the only ways that we can really explain it. We'll have to go on now to the next slide. 7 planes of existence is what it's largely about. We live in a septenary solar system and a septenary universe. And when the masters were asked if this was fundamentally the structure of all existence, they said, as far as they knew, they believed, talking about 50-degree initiates, that yes, that the septenary nature of our solar system is found also in the greater macrocosm of the universe, that it too is made of a septenate of energies. And we've talked about it in relationship to the root races. There is some talk among certain people in metaphysical groups and some esoteric groups about the silver cord, that we have this silver cord attached to our solar plexus. And when we project out of body, this cord keeps us connected. I have never seen it. I don't know of anybody who can truthfully say they've seen it. Somebody will comment tonight in the question and answer period, probably that they've seen it. I have never seen it. I have known high degree initiate beings in my lifetime who have never seen it. But it's part of almost a folklore of the new age that we all have this silver cord that connects us from our solar plexus to these out-of-body experiences. But like I say, I have never seen it. Vrittis in stage 1 of astral projection, this is not a real good example of a stage 1 projection, but it's connected to it. Vrittis are images that you see. They can be powerful, symbolic messages where you're just flashed an image, and the image is worth 1,000 words or more. The old adage that a picture is worth 1,000 words is especially true in the esoteric, where vrittis are concerned. I tell the story of a vritti that I had the night I met Douglas Baker, and the vritti was the midnight sky. And as I looked at the midnight sky, it began to there began to appear these zodiacal signs in an electric blue light that went in a circle all the way from Aries all the way back around to Pisces. And they flashed each time a new symbol appeared. It flashed in a circular pattern around in this giant zodiacal configuration. And in the center of this wheel of zodiacal signs in electric blue light appeared the Eye of Horus. And I'd never had a dream. And as I dreamed the dream, saw the vritti, I said to myself, wow, I've never had a dream like this before. And it was super powerful. That was the first night I met Baker at a summer school conference. 14 years later, Baker asked me to help fund a series of astrology videos that they were going to make at Claregate. And so I sent money to England to help in this noble effort. And a year or two had passed and the effort was complete. I think it was more like 3 or 4 years. And one of the videos, Baker sent me one of the videos, which he interestingly had dedicated to me, was the horoscope of John F. Kennedy Jr. And when I played the video for the very first time, there was my image that I had seen the night I met Douglas Baker of the midnight sky, the indigo sky filled with stars and galaxies, and then the flashing of these zodiac symbols all the way around through all 12 houses. I never told Baker about my dream vision or vritti that I saw on the night I met him, but apparently he knew about it. It's a true story. And we'll show some of these videos. I think in the past I've shown a few to various groups here at my home, but it's very interesting coincidence. Self-hypnosis allows the physical body to slip out of alignment with the etheric. The inner vehicles are then able to charge the etheric. The outcome is energization of the physical body. Because no sleep has occurred and therefore no break in consciousness, the mind is alert and ready for activity, unlike the usual after effects of, say, an afternoon's nap. The inner vehicles have not been projected more than a few inches. So your bodies are out of alignment. And we say that one of the best ways as you're preparing for sleep at night is rapid relaxation of just really letting all the tensions of the physical body be released. And it will throw your astral body, your etheric body, out of alignment with the physical. Our primary concern tonight is the astral body and throwing it out of alignment. This happens with drugs. I've met a lot of young people in my life. I've experienced it myself numerous times, but these experiences can happen variously and through artificial means and through direct effort. Stage 2 projection. Now, this is an important stage because the determination to move upwards from stage 1 projection to the stage 2 should be as powerful as that which might summon up if you were at the bottom of a pool and someone was holding you by the ankle underwater. It's a good explanation for it. It takes effort and willpower to project. And you have to have a target to project to. And the targets, as we'll see in the coming pictures, images here, is determined by your own spiritual growth, your willpower, how much willpower you have, and your ability to visualize. The main factor is will, or Atma. Atma is the divine will, and you're summoning your willpower to motivate you and to help project you into wherever this target exists that you're trying to get to. Desire motivation is too slow for long distances. So you can travel at various speeds. Sometimes I have had experiences that were instantaneous contact in the Akashic records, which resides in the outer body the outer limits of the astral body of the earth is where the Akashic records are stored in the extreme outer perimeter. Desire itself has to be accompanied by will. You have to have the willpower. Also, reflex visualization. The concept of the target so well established in your consciousness that we can call it to mind in the flash of a second. Anytime and anywhere, and by this, I mean, even in the inner and subjective world of the dream state. So you could visualize something in the invisible worlds, and you can visualize if you were upstairs sleeping in my bed and you wanted to project to that picture on the wall back there of Minerva's head, or to this television screen, you would project a short distance. And it wouldn't take a great deal of effort because it's a short distance, and you could, it would be almost like a reflex kind of an action. Baker says here from his book, Techniques of Astral Projection, the concept of the target is so well established in our consciousness that we can call it to mind in a flash of a second, anytime and anywhere. And by this, we mean even in the inner and subjective world of the dream state. And it's very true. You'll learn that as you progress in these techniques. Sleeping lightly is a very important thing. Where I said I have written in my notes about sleeping like a pig. It's no good. You have to sleep very lightly. I sleep in a cool bedroom because it helps me sleep lightly. If the bedroom is too warm and I'm too hot, I have trouble projecting astrally. And usually I'll fall into a deep sleep and won't have any ability really to project. It's very limited, if at all. A development of the critical faculty. This is a very important aspect, and we'll talk a little bit more about it later on in the lecture and maybe in the question and answer period. An awareness that you are dreaming. This implies one of the most important aspects of early discipleship is continuity of consciousness. That's where you're asleep, but you're aware that you're asleep, and you're also aware simultaneously that you're in the dream world. You're in a dream state. And so you can be in two worlds. A new yoga is forming in the world, and it's coming out of the West. It's a product of the Aquarian age, and it's exactly this idea of the development of a critical faculty, where both through continuity of consciousness, will explain a good way to do that, is becoming a part of your spiritual nomenclature, and you are asleep and aware that you're asleep, and you're also aware that you're dreaming and are in the dream world. So both your physical brain is telling you of its awareness, and your astral brain, the brain of your astral body, is also telling you en rapport with the physical that you're out of body. A very important thing to develop. And one of the ways to develop it is through keeping a spiritual diary and a dream journal. I combine both of them. They're not separate. It should also include, we've talked about it before in our lectures here, it should also include experiences in what we call the reading of the gloss, coincidental events. Pauline's book tonight, the 40th anniversary copy of Carlos Castaneda's teachings of Don Juan, Yahweh, way of knowledge. Interesting coincidence. Write it down in your spiritual diary. It all has meaning. When you can begin to read the signs in the outer and mundane world and give it meaning, and you can incorrectly interpret your dreams, you're making progress. You're making tremendous progress. There are people watching tonight here on Zoom who have done that and who can do that. And I say we can all do it. This isn't some impossible mystery to be solved. It's a real thing that we can all do for many good reasons, which we'll talk about. Breathing, factor 5, the projection technique for projecting to stage 5. One of the important things that happens in the breathing process is what we call the bellows breath. And in the bellows breath, as a blacksmith would move the bellows for his blacksmith furnace and force more oxygen into the coals, so too we do when we practice the bellows breath, or as one of my friends said to me recently, who's tuned in tonight, fire breath. It's the fire breath. It's a breath where you're taking in rapidly prana, and you do it by rapid inhalation and exhalation, filling the lungs to extreme capacity like this. You don't want to do that too many times because your blood will start to oxidize. Some people have been known to pass out, but you can do it a few times. And the idea is to train yourself while you're asleep to do that. And especially if you're in difficult circumstance, you can be on the inner planes and you can be attacked on the inner planes, or find yourself in extremely uncomfortable and difficult situations. Too numerous to mention, but they could involve black magicians. And by that we mean practitioners of black magic who are constantly on the outlook for people who are growing spiritually. And they will try to attack. And when that happens, if you can force through the breathing of the bellows breath or the fire breath, you're storing prana and you become invincible in the astral world. Nothing can harm you, absolutely nothing. Stage 5. So that's the breathing is a very important aspect of it. We say in the esoteric that the kingdom of heaven must be taken by storm. You can't be mamby-pamby in life trying to get to a degree, to an initiation and a state of growth and spiritual birth by having a laissez-faire attitude about it. You have to be very direct. You have to have willpower. You got to have guts. Takes courage. I remember years ago when I lived with my elderly English friends outside of Cape Town, South Africa, that the masters spoke through this particular individual. Joseph Busby was his name. He was a New Age experiment where his throat chakra was being used, and there'll be more and more of it in the New Age, where people will be overshadowed and either their minds will be attuned to higher manas, or their throat chakras will be used by very advanced spiritual teachers, the guides of mankind. And these experience I had with this particular master was, he told me that it would take tremendous courage to do what the task that was set before me. This was in late 1982, early 1983. That whole time period from 1980 to 1984, 85 transformed my life in unimaginable ways. It doesn't all happen at once, but it can happen through a series of awarenesses and events that take place over a period of several years. Oftentimes, we can look at our lives in 7-year increments from age 0 to 7, from 7 to 14, 14 to 21, 21 to 28, 28 to 35, 42, and so on. Those every 7th year is a critical point. Again, septenary aspect of spiritual growth. People that I know will confirm that, and will tell you that it's absolutely true. If you think of your life in 7-year increments, then you can see a pattern of growth, especially for people who are spiritually minded and esoteric. In my house are many mansions, a book written by C.W. Leadbeater, an excellent book on the astral plane. You have to remember that the planes are stratified, and each plane has 7 subplanes. And I'll give you an example. Baker, when he wrote the Dictionary of Astrology, he took the 500,000 words of the English dictionary and gave astrological aspects for each word. That takes a brain the size of this house to do that. He said he did it using his astral brain. Took him 7 years where he didn't sleep. He had continuity of consciousness, which meant he was aware 24 hours a day. I can remember calling him at midnight, at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, England time, and he would instantly answer the phone. Instantly answer the phone, because he had continuity of consciousness. So he told me that I could call anytime, and I did. But in Leadbeater's book, he talks about, here you can see the title over here of the page, it's scenery, the astral plane, it's scenery, its inhabitants and phenomena. Very important. Here's an image, you might want to put the camera on this, really, of a young girl who's visualizing a rose, and she's in the astral world, and she's appreciating the beauty of the rose. And because it's an emotional experience for her, the rose begins in the astral world, begins to grow, and it becomes a gigantic rose, like the biggest sunflower you've ever seen. This tiny rose is of enormous size and proportion because she's feeding it astral. And of course, too, in this image here, we see the fear element of fears of spiders and rats and being attacked by mice and viruses. Here's a virus over here. And it goes back to the story I told you about my friend who feared COVID. And it was an incredible event, very tragic for all of her friends to endure, to say nothing of what she was experiencing. The ring pass not is an important factor. And the ring pass not is, in esoteric parlance, the extent or the limit of your consciousness. We all have a limit. We all have a ring pass not. Some people's ring pass knots are minute. Some are enormous ring pass knots. At the 3rd degree initiation, the ring pass knot of any disciple can extend to the moon and beyond, slightly beyond the moon. The ring pass knot. At the Fourth, certainly at the fifth initiation, the ring pass knot encapsulates the sun and actually the entire solar system. Beings who are higher than that, sixth and seventh, can project beyond the star Sirius. So it's important to know these terms and these words, especially if you're going to teach. You have to have a vocabulary, an esoteric vocabulary. I always tell people to read the occult glossary by De Prucker or Blavatsky's occult glossary. Beautiful explanations for these occult or esoteric terminologies. But that determines it. Your own spiritual growth determines your ring pass knot and the extent that you will be able to project using your willpower and determination. These are planes of the astral world. We talk about astral buddhi, astral manas, astral kama manas, astral psychic or pranic, astral, and the astral objective, which is the lowest of the astral planes. But all planes are stratified. Fear is a strong fear, and strong emotion is a creative factor in the astral planes. Absolutely true. Powerful mantras. If you feel yourself under attack, as I told the person who had experienced psychic attack and even had the physical, you could see it physically on this person's body, say the Lord's Prayer, say the great invocation. But these experiences can be affected by drugs and alcohol. I've had experiences. We talked earlier in our group here at my house about succubus and incubus, which are terms used primarily in the Catholic Church of astral attack, where it's sexual. The experience is sexual. And when I was a young boy, I had an attack by the succubus, a female astral entity who wanted to have sex with me, and did, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
It's a real thing, and it's quite common in esoteric circles. But women have this, and it's also not talking about the negative side, but a positive side is one of the deep secrets for esoteric Christians concerning the Immaculate Conception. Is an astral entity, a high being, and of course that's the whole story if you read The Secret Doctrine, Volume 2, Anthropogenesis, of the projection of the Manasaputras 18 million years ago into the earth, who had liaisons with etheric, astral, human bodies, astral bodies, etheric bodies of evolving human beings who had reached a limit in their evolution. This is the whole basis of the myth of the, what's the program that's on every night? Something about ancient aliens. Oh. And they're always attributing everything to guys in flying saucers. If you're in your astral body, excuse me, if you're in your astral body, you don't need a spaceship. You can travel anywhere in the universe if you have the ring pass knot and the will and determination to do it. So I debunk the whole idea of spaceships. But anyway, these are interesting things here that we need to consider. the control of desire nature, visualizing the masters, the sexual factor, load the superconscious with powerful esoteric symbols. My house, I'm constantly surrounded by powerful esoteric symbols. All of the pictures on all of the books, all of the photographs on the walls, in every room, there are even occult objects that have been materialized objects, gemstones, feathers, and they carry with them numinostic energy. And the house is enlivened by this numinostic energy. Sometimes this house is even visited as an outpost by a Nirmanakaya. We have had experiences of that. You should expect it.
So it's
to have-
8:20, just so you know.
Okay, well, we'll finish up here. I think there's a couple slides left, but the whole idea of the importance of astral projection, one is service work. And there was a time where the English ashram was called upon to influence the thinking of de Gaulle through the astral world. We're making contact with the Prime Minister of France, de Gaulle, to influence his thinking on the common market. At that time, there was the common market in Europe was developing, and there needed to be influence. And so it can happen to like any politician or world leader. Presidents of the United States can fall into a category where they would be influenced by forces of light and forces of darkness, I might add, and influenced from the astral world by things like whispering into their astral bodies, things that they should do or consider. Experiences in the hospital bed where your astral body has projected and has seen you in bed, and then you tell the nurse about having had this experience. Or here was an image that was actually an image that was drawn from the place where evil dwells. And one of the lines in the passage of the Great Invocation, where it lies under the surface of the earth at the location of the Atlas Mountains. When you read the Great Invocation, the place where evil dwells, that's what it's talking about. And this was where the English master had rescued a disciple who had fallen prey to astral entities that reside in this dark, cavernous region under the Atlas Mountains. Very esoteric stuff. So I'll take some questions now, because we're going to have to finish up here in a couple of minutes. And does anybody here in the audience tonight have any question you'd like to ask? I know we covered an awful lot of information.
I wanted to ask the question.
Yeah,
actually.
go ahead.
So when you say that psychic attack and astral projection, is that happen when you traveling astral? I mean, how that happens? Like,
How does what happen?
well, you were talking about the astral projection. It's like almost traveling, right?
Yeah, you do travel. Yeah, you
Okay.
go to places.
You go to places.
You
What
can
about
go back to the beginning of the universe?
yeah? So and when the psychic attack happens during the travel or during
During the course of events, you might be just in the astral world. You might be out of body and come under attack for various reasons. Either the dark forces want to scare the bejesus out of you or affect you in some negative way, or you may be sexually aroused and attract discarnate entities to you for that purpose. That's what happened to me. I was 18 years old when it happened. But it was a real experience. I didn't know what it was because I was too young and I didn't know anything about the esoteric, but I later learned about through the Catholic Church,
Oh, boy.
I might add.
The priest.
Yeah, the whole idea of succubus and incubus. And in incubus, a male entity comes to a woman. We had an earlier conversation, which I wish our Zoom audience could have heard, of a young lady who's in our group tonight, had such an experience, similar to mine. But we could talk for hours. In fact, when I give the lecture on materialization, we'll bring up this subject again because it's very interesting, and many people have experienced it. And there's a lot of stories now.
So
Is it-
I have one more question.
Okay.
So like, how do you know if you are in a attack? Like, how anybody recognize that?
Well, you know you're being attacked.
Oh,
Fear.
you will know?
Fear.
You'll have fear of it.
Okay, I see.
Yeah,
You
Okay.
will
Or
feel a
pain.
heaviness.
Yeah, you'll have pain and suffering.
Sometimes
If
you
you're
can't
under
breathe.
attack,
Okay. Okay.
you'll be
So-
paralyzed with
Yeah,
fear.
you're paralyzed, yeah.
Excuse me, but believe me, you will know when you are being attacked, and it can be in the physical as well.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, you, you may question it if you're going insane or not or whatever, but at some point you will know that this is happening to you.
Absolutely. It's all part of the spiritual growth process. You have to experience all kinds of things, and they'll be given to you, these experiences, as a part of your spiritual growth.
Mhm.
So you have to kind of keep that in mind too. So you have a lot of things you have to keep in mind. So
That's so
it's a big
true.
job.
That is so, so true. At the time, you may not realize that, but later you will realize that. Also, I'd like to say that the chord that you talked about, I too, and I've actually looked for it because I had read about it, many years ago. I too have never seen that chord.
I've never seen, I don't know anybody who is competent in the astral world who's ever seen it. It's like I said, it's like a part of the mythology of the Aquarian
Urban
age.
legend.
Yeah, urban legend.
Urban legend.
Yeah, the astral world, urban legend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just like to say,
Trolls and silver
yeah.
cords.
I just like to say I haven't seen it either. I was afraid to say anything at first, didn't want to add too much to commentary, but I just have to say that I haven't seen the silver cord either. And the attack thing, I'm just going to second and third what everybody's saying about, that experience. And
Yeah, tell us your name. I can't see.
I'm
your
sorry, my name is
face.
Jennifer. My name is Jennifer. Jennifer
Oh, yeah.
Knight.
Jennifer.
Hi, yes.
Jennifer Knight.
Yes, Jennifer Knight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
before, we'll make a rule that before you can speak and ask a question, you have to tell the audience here your name, which
Definitely.
includes me, so I know who's talking. Some of the voices I recognize, but most of them I don't. But
Gotcha.
yeah, I agree with you, Jennifer.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Or just thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Tell your friends.
I
If you
will.
have esoteric friends, you should tell your friends to contact me on Facebook, and then we'll put them on the list, or they can get the address for the meetings, maybe from you. You could send it to them, to your friends.
Okay. Well, I
Anybody
found out.
else?
Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
go ahead.
No, I just want to say that I found out about you through my mom and my sister. And my mom was Christine, who just spoke.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Okay. I'll put
Yeah.
myself back on mute.
Thank
Um,
you.
This is Christine again. I'd like to ask a question though, real quick if I can. Many times throughout my life, I've had different encounters. And when I used to tell this to certain teachers at the time, they would tell me that it was all due to my own self and my negative thinking and all of these different kinds of things, that it wasn't real. And I've had other people through life, of course, now I realize that I had so many encounters so I can help other people. But what do you say to people? And I get it. We're all one collective, but what do you say to people that just say, well, none of that's real, you can't really be attacked, and it's all in yourself? You know what I'm saying? What do you say to those kind of people, for lack of a
There's
better
a
word?
thin line between schizophrenia and discipleship. Many disciples would be diagnosed as being schizophrenic. Many schizophrenics are, in fact, very highly evolved spiritual people. And there's a thin line that divides the two. But if you keep a dream journal, like I suggested, you have to have a spiritual diary. If you meditate, if you're of service to mankind, and you're reading the esoteric classics, that would be books by Bailey, Blavatsky, Leadbeater, Douglas Baker, people like that, any of the old time Theosophists, A. Powell, others, you're forcing Harmonious into your brain by reading, and it stimulates neurons that are dormant and it activates them. And when you do that, and you're of service to mankind and you're meditating, you'll open the 3 head centers. Each one of those disciplines, reading the books, meditating, being of service to mankind, opens a head center. And it's the overlapping of the 3 head centers that creates the spiritual third eye. All eyes require a lens. And in the overlapping of the chakras, that's the square inch, the sacred square inch that is in fact the third eye. So you begin to see differently. You begin to experience differently. That's the deep esoteric secret. I may not have answered your question perfectly, but in a sense, I went above it a little bit so you could look down and see the trivial comments of people who don't know anything about the esoteric. Don't take their criticisms to really have any value.
The 8:30.
Because I still see that a lot. Of course, now it's much different for me, but I still see that a lot, and I don't know how you can explain these things to people. Because
Well, you shouldn't try in most cases. If they're not esoteric, they'll never get it, no matter how much explaining you do. You cannot cast your pearls before swine. One of the important passages in the Bible. I made the mistake of doing that for years, trying to tell people about the esoteric who had no interest in it, couldn't comprehend what I was talking about, and would have never believed it anyway.
Well, thank you. That's so very, very true.
Yeah, you have to, a lot of those things you have to keep to yourself.
Oh yeah, I keep a lot to myself, believe it or not, but I appreciate your answer, actually.
Time up, 8:30, we
Yeah.
have to go.
Okay, we got to go tonight, folks. It's 8:30. I want to thank everybody. We'll be back next week with the opening of the third eye.
Thank you very much.
right,
Y'all have a
thank
good
you,
night.
David.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.